exhausting day so far, but I've been having a lovely time with the all-new Kawasaki Ninja 400. Well, not exactly all new. It came to India in 2018 in its BS4 avatar, and around that time it made about 50 bhp of power and 38 Nm of torque. Since then, it's lost about 4 bhp of power and 1 Nm of torque. So now in the BS6 avatar that you see in front of you, it produces about 44.5 bhp and 37 Nm of torque, which still makes it the most powerful bike in its segment, but still the most expensive bike in its segment by quite a considerable long shot. So a bit of history about the Ninja 400. So you got to backtrack to the Ninja 250. That used to be the OG. So since the 250, then Kawasaki came out with the Ninja 300. It used to be a CBU, cost about 4 lakhs, exorbitantly overpriced compared to its competitors. In fact, I think the closest rival it had was the RC390 at that point, which was about 2 lakhs cheaper than the Ninja 300, which was quite a considerable gap if you think about it. And fast forward later, Kawasaki didn't really do anything to the Ninja 300. They localized the bike, they made it CKD, they gave you ABS, but that's that. And maybe in typical Kawasaki fashion, they came up with new color schemes. But that's about it. And then they came up with the Ninja 400 to fill in the gap and sort all the problems that the 300 had and to give you a bit more performance. So, a bit of backstory here. Now, I've owned a Ninja 300 and so I'm going to be referencing and talking about a lot of improvements that this bike takes over the Ninja 300. And I've done about 20,000 kilometers of mine, so I have a good idea of what was wrong with the Ninja 300 and just how much better the Ninja 400 is. But after everything being said and done, does the Kawasaki Ninja 400 not only outdo its predecessors, but also its competition and justify its asking price? Does it nail the balance, the Kawasaki balance that the Ninja series does between sport touring and a bit of enthusiastic riding? Well, that's what we're here to find out today. A couple of things I'd like to address about the Ninja 300. It was ergonomically quite flawed. I mean, that was just one of the flaws. And truth be told, it's not exactly the motorcycle's fault. It was my fault. You could say the younger me was just stupid. I was a college-going kid and I found the bike exciting, so I bought it. But I never took into account the fact that it was ergonomically not compatible with me. So one of the biggest problems I had owning the Ninja 300 was the fact that the seat height was way too low for my preference. And again, the 300 is a great motorcycle for shorter riders or women that are on the shorter side. It's a very easily manageable motorcycle, very friendly for newer riders. But for me, it was too short. So on the Ninja 300, not only would I easily flat foot, but even while I was sitting, my knees would be bent to this level. When I'd put it up on the foot pegs were quite high set. So my legs would raise, go forward quite a lot and essentially bump into the front fairing, especially under braking, or if I went over a speed breaker, I'd hit my own knee against the fairing, which was not exactly the most comfortable thing to be doing. And again, it's not that it was a bad motorcycle in any way. It was a great motorcycle. The engine was beautiful. I mean, in fact, this engine is essentially the 300 engine that has an increased bore and stroke. But more on that later. So ergonomically, the Ninja 300 was flawed. Ergonomically speaking, the Ninja 400 is awesome. It's actually quite comfortable. I've been riding this all day and I don't feel exhausted at all, which is quite commendable. Now, there is a problem with the ergonomics that I have to address, is the fact that this seat is at a weird incline. And every time you brake or you're riding in general, it tends to push you forward into the tank, which is not exactly the most comfortable thing when you're busy trying to ride, whereas the bike just wants you to hump the tank. It's not exactly the most comfortable thing to be doing. But nevertheless, yeah, as you can tell, even the seat has now started to show a mark because it's been pushing me forward so much that the seat's now got a crease on it because of the constant pushing forward. But that seems to be my only gripe, ergonomically speaking. And I'm not a huge fan of the mirrors. The mirrors can feel like they're mounted on a different lane because they feel so far ahead. I mean, they're quite stable. They don't vibrate as much, but yeah, they're quite far. So that can be a bit of an issue for you to focus on the tiny mirrors that are in the distance. But yeah, once you get used to them, they're actually pretty decent and you can use them quite well as far as sports bike mirrors go. But ergonomically, those are my only problems. Otherwise, the motorcycle is quite comfortable and I have little to no complaints with it in that regard. So before we proceed, I have a lot of lovely things to say about the Ninja 400, but I'd like to address all the bad things that I don't like about it. So I already told you about the ergonomics. One more thing, and I don't like, is the speedometer. Now don't get me wrong, the speedometer is beautiful. It's part analog, part digital. It's my favorite combination on any motorcycle. And on this, it's done really well. The analog actually looks quite nice. The problem, however, is when you ride the bike at night. When you ride the bike at night, the analog is not well lit enough. You cannot see the dial sort of go up and down. In fact, I wish Kawasaki would have illuminated the dial so that you had a better idea of where you are in the rev range. But I guess that's just something you can get used to owning this motorcycle and shouldn't be that much of a problem. But apart from that, one more niggle that I have with this bike is the fact that the headlamp is, it's okay. You know, I mean, in typical LED headlamp format, not a lot of LEDs nail it. Most of them are like faded flashlights. And this one comes sort of similar. The headlamp at low beam has good spread, but on high beam, it just feels like somebody put on a flashlight, and I don't think the high beam is aimed high enough. So when you're cornering say under low light conditions, late evening or something, and you're cornering, it won't illuminate any of the rest of the corners. So you're essentially entering every corner blind. So that can be quite an issue when you're riding the bike at night. And I don't think anyone would want to fix auxiliary lamps on this motorcycle and ruin the aesthetic of it. So yeah, that is something I wish Kawasaki worked on. Another thing that I personally do not like, and again, some people may like it, some people not like it, is that I find the aesthetics of the motorcycle quite diluted. Think about it. You got the Ninja 400, looks the same as the Ninja 650, which looks the same as the ZX6R, which looks the same as the old ZX10R, and again, same with the Ninja 1000 and all and all and all. My point is that once every Kawasaki motorcycle starts to look the same, me as a potential buyer for a 400, I'm super excited because I'm like, great, I get a bike that looks like the 10R or the 6R. But to anyone that's buying the 6R or the 10R, I mean, not the 10R anymore, but the 6R or the 650, I feel like they'd probably want a bit more diversity than just different color schemes. You know, and besides, the color schemes are not all that diverse. It's not like all the Kawasaki bikes you get in India, you get multiple different colors. It's also always the same shade of green with different parts, black, reds, whites thrown in there. This is the Kawasaki racing livery. So again, I'm not complaining, it looks really nice. But I wish there were more color options available. Back in the day when you got the Ninja 300, you could get it in white or you could get it in green. Eventually you got more color options, blues and whatnot. And I wish Kawasaki played with this color palette a bit more and didn't just stick to the traditional green. In fact, tried different colors that would sort of do justice to the design and aesthetic of the motorcycle. That being said, that is one of my only gripes so far. And yes, the tires. Now, the tires on the Ninja 300 were crap, to put it simply. They were garbage. They were really horrible tires. I never liked them. The first thing I did when I bought the bike is got rid of them because they never inspired confidence. Plus, the old Ninja 300 that used to be a CBU, it had these horrible wooden brakes, so they didn't exactly have any feedback, which Kawasaki did improve later and also gave you ABS with the CKD version. But this one comes with ABS as standard. This one gets a pair of Dunlop tires. Now, these Dunlop tires are definitely an improvement over the IRC tires that you get on the 300. But even then, I would say that the kind of grip they offer are adequate for a sports bike. They don't exactly push in the boundaries. They're not Metzlers, you know, so the kind of grip you get from them are not impressive to say. When I'm leaning the bike in hard corners, I can almost feel the rear slipping a bit every now and then. And I feel like if this motorcycle is targeted for beginners, well, wealthy beginners, but beginners nonetheless, I would imagine that you would equip this motorcycle with better tires, especially at this price point. As I was saying, especially at this price point, but it's okay, we'll get back to that later. So far, these are the things I don't like about the Kawasaki Ninja 400. What do I like about the Kawasaki Ninja 400? The fact that it looks like every other Kawasaki out there, the bigger ones. To me, as a 400 buyer, that would be awesome because I get a motorcycle that looks so aesthetically upmarket. I mean, it's not just the color, the looks, everything combined, they really turn heads. And every time I'm riding around, so I live in Navi Mumbai, I'm riding around Navi Mumbai or I'm riding around Bombay, I'm stuck in jam-packed traffic, and everybody's eyeballs are on this motorcycle. And I think that is quite impressive and commendable. You could argue that it's because its color is a bit too loud and it's hard to miss, but I guess that's part of the aesthetic, right? That's the reason Ferraris are red. So yeah, in that regard, I said aesthetically, this motorcycle is bang on and it gets the kind of attention that I don't think any other motorcycle in its segment does. Not the BMW, not the TVS, not the KTM. They really can't match up to it. If you parked all four side by side, I mean, you know what, just just get the BMW out of the picture. The TVS, the KTM and the Kawasaki. If you parked all three side by side, let's be honest, we all know which one you'd be looking at. In fact, I'll ask my videographer to put a picture of all three, and you let us know in the comment section below which one you think looks aesthetically better. But beauty lies in the eye of the beholder, and for me, this one looks the sexiest of the three. So the quality, now when it comes to build quality, this is right there. When it comes to build quality, it really does justify its asking price. It's built really solid. There's not a single bit of vibration coming from the motorcycle, from the visor, from the plastic panels, nothing. This is really well put together, and everything from firing the engine up to riding down a bumpy road, you don't hear any plastic rattling, you don't even hear any chain noise as much. So very commendable to Kawasaki to give you a very well-built motorcycle. Now in terms of handling, whatever limitations that the tire may bring about, if you look past those limitations, this motorcycle has insane capabilities. It handles so well, I am honestly quite impressed. To me, the Ninja 300 was trying to be a sports bike, but it handled like a sports tourer. Its ergonomics were like a sports tourer, and it didn't do either one well enough. To me, the 400 solves that problem. When it comes to comfort, it has comfort. When it comes to handling, it's got great handling. It has enough space for me to sit comfortably when I'm attacking corners. Again, I have done about, I would say, around 300 kilometers on this motorcycle so far, and so far I have not had a single complaint with the handling or the comfort of the motorcycle. The handling to me is really precise. I think I would love to put it in a test against the RC390. Is it better than the RC390? I wouldn't say so, because it tends to focus a bit more on the comfort aspect of it. But to me, when it comes to handling and fast riding, I think comfort is a very important part, because if you're comfortable, you can really push yourself, and this motorcycle allows you to get comfortable and really push yourself. So in that, I would say this motorcycle is phenomenal, and the only suggestion I would give you is, when you get this bike, if you get this bike, is swap the tires, and I promise you, you will unlock another level of handling on this motorcycle. So yeah, that's that for handling. Now, you know how our Indian roads are, they're not exactly smooth. Even the smoothest roads have a lot of bumps, and when you're riding a motorcycle fast enough, you feel those bumps quite a lot. But this motorcycle does a fantastic job in absorbing those bumps. Despite being tuned a bit more for comfort, it manages bumps quite well and keeps the composure of this motorcycle right there, and allows you to attack corners without being fazed by tiny little bumps or stones or undulations in the road. So I really like this motorcycle. The suspension, unfortunately, is not adjustable in the front. It is adjustable in the rear, but I don't think you really need to tinker it with it, because right out the box, I think this handling package is really good. Now, this is the same Ninja 300 engine that's been up-tuned. So like the Duke 200 and the Duke 390, this is the Ninja 400 to the Ninja 300. And it essentially takes the same engine, increases the bore and stroke, pumps out more power. So now you got 44.5 bhp of power and 37 Nm of torque out of this engine. And let me tell you, this engine is very comfortable to ride. It loves to cruise, it loves to ride aggressive. Now, peak power for this engine comes up around 10,000 RPM, and it revs. It's a screamer. This engine loves to be revved. Loves it. Sure, you can ride it easy if you want. You can go easy. Like in 6th gear, you can keep it at 40 kilometers per hour and it'll still do it. That's how tractable this engine is. But in case you don't want to stay in 40 kilometers per hour, you can ring through every gear, and trust me, all the 6 gears are so much fun. You can rev it all the way to its 13,000 RPM rev limiter. And at that point, this parallel twin sounds so sweet. It revs so good. And trust me, it's something you have to experience. It just music to my ears. But let's talk about the elephant in the room now. Now, the engine capacity has gone up, but the fuel capacity has gone down. The Ninja 300 used to be a 17-litre tank capacity, but this is now a 14-litre tank capacity. Has fuel efficiency gotten better with BS6? Nope, it hasn't. This one, if you ride it sedately, and I mean sedately, you can get as much as 23-25 kilometers per litre, which is not too insanely good. For reference, I get about 19 kilometers per litre out of my Triumph Street Triple RS, and that's a 765cc 3-cylinder. So again, you can imagine you're getting about. But today I've been riding this motorcycle like a maniac, and it's been returning about 20 kilometers per litre. Factor in the fact that you got a 14-litre tank capacity, 20 kilometers per litre, and you see that you can't go too far. I would say ideally in one full tank you have a range of about 300 if you ride like a sane person. And for a sports touring motorcycle, 300 isn't a lot. It's sufficient, it's doable, it's nothing to brag about though. Alright, in terms of braking, now the Kawasaki Ninja 400 brakes quite well. The Ninja 300 didn't brake so much, no, not really that well. To me, these brakes, they brake quite well. You have good feedback from the brakes, and I think it's a huge improvement compared to the 300. I have never found myself running out of braking capacity so far. It's braked just as much as I've needed it. In fact, at points I've hardly had to rely on the rear brake. The front brake have been strong enough. So this got a set of petal discs, and not only do they look aesthetic, they do a fantastic job. So in terms of braking too, full points. Now, one thing that I just remembered in terms of ergonomics, now this visor that you see over here, it doesn't really help as much when you're riding at higher speeds. It doesn't really cut down wind so much. It's only when you are riding the motorcycle in a tuck that it actually does something. You know, that's the only time you're actually, it's cutting down the wind. But apart from that, it's not really doing anything. And I think if you are going to be touring more often, I would recommend looking for a replacement for this, a double bubble visor. And maybe you can do the classic thing of removing the number plate and sticking it down there. It's not legal, but again, if you change the visor for a bit more ergonomics, I don't know if you'll be able to mount the number plate holder again. If you can, then that's awesome. If you can't, then yeah, you gotta choose bargaining with the police or ergonomics, whatever works for you. But that being said, do let us know down in the comment section below what you think about this motorcycle, aesthetically speaking. What do you think about this color shade? And do you think Kawasaki should bring about more colors? At this price point, it is asking for quite a lot. I mean, at like 5 lakhs ex-showroom, this is 5 lakhs 19,000 ex-showroom to be precise. This is as much as what I remember the first generation 650 used to cost. I mean, think about it. Think about this. A 400 that costs nearly as much, if not more than what a 650 used to cost at some point. And that is insane. But does it justify its price? Does it justify its build quality? Does it justify all of those things? I'm not too sure actually. Because in a lot of places I feel like it does justify it. Whereas in some places I do feel like it kind of falls short a bit. I think the only true experiment and the only true test is going to be by comparing this motorcycle to another one. Now, come to think of it, what motorcycle compares against this? I can't think of any other. Hold that thought. On that note, I have to end this video. Stick around to the Top Gear India YouTube channel. Whatever that motorcycle was, I'm going to compare the Ninja 400 against it. And let us know in the comment section below if you've already guessed what that motorcycle is. If you haven't, then stick around. Another day or two, we'll be dropping that one too. Thank you for watching. This is Gavin Rodriguez signing off.